Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of Morning Coffee with Media. This morning, we are super pleased to welcome the amazing Peter Brennan, Editor-in-Chief of the Orange County Business Journal. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah. So you've been in this role about 8 months now?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah. So tell us what it's been like shifting. You've been at the Business Journal collectively a total of 11 years. Right. And how's this role been shifting for you?
Well, in all honesty, I'm 65 years old. I was getting ready to retire. And last year we hired an editor-in-chief and it didn't work out. And basically I stepped into the role. And being editor-in-chief, you get all the slings and arrows, all the mistakes. As I always tell my copy editor, there are 2 million ways to make a mistake in each issue. And that's literally true. And so we try to reduce that to as much as possible. And you get complaints from readers, you get compliments and the big boss and the owners, sometimes are like, why'd you do that? Why'd you do this? And so I really wasn't, I enjoy being a journalist, a writer. I wasn't really, how would I say, eager to step into the role. But I found that stepping into the role, I'm in charge of all the stories that you've been reading for the past 8 months, 9 months. And so I edit all of them. And I want them to get up to a certain quality, a certain standard that I have. And we have young reporters and editors there. And what's been really gratifying to me is they appreciate everything I do for them. And I tell them, I'm going to make you look the best I possibly can. And so they appreciate that. And that's been really gratifying for me. And so, I was thinking I'd be retiring this year or maybe next year. And I just interviewed Gavin Herbert, and he's 93. Yeah. And, we were talking about it. He says, the people who stay active longer have a healthier lifestyle. And so I'm thinking to myself, well, that really sounds true. And I just interviewed Lee Steinberg, the guy who's responsible for Jerry Maguire and Inspiration. He's 75 years old. He says he doesn't know the word retirement. So I'm thinking of all these things in my head. And my daughter says, well, you got to retire. You got to homeschool my kids. And so I had
Is that retirement?
Yeah. So I'm having this. I'm enjoying it. And let me ask you this. How many of you are readers? Okay, you're all my friends. All my friends. You can always email me, and I will always listen to you. Okay, I won't always accept a story, but you never know when a good story will come out. Almost everyone has a great story, and so.
That's good. Well, let's go back a little bit because I know we delved more into your background the first time you were on the show, but some of the people and our new viewers may not know. Tell us a little bit about your journalism background. You lived in South America for a bit. You were here at the Journal. You went to Bloomberg. You've popped around a bunch. But we're really lucky, by the way, Peter, to have you with someone with your financial experience, your national purview. You're very sharp, and you keep me on my toes.
Well, thank you very much. I am what I like to say is a walking oxymoron. and in the sense that what journalism never tells you is that a lot of journalists leave the profession by the time they're in their early 40s because the pay is pretty low, the pressure is really high. If you have really high pressure, you should be getting a high pay right up here. Journalism, you have high pressure, low pay. That was particularly true in print, and I've been hearing in TV it's going that way as well, in TV news. So my wife's been very tolerant of my career. She thinks I'm underpaid and so but she lets me do it because I enjoy doing it, and so I started off at the intern at the San Francisco Examiner covering the Democratic Convention of '84. Actually interviewed Dianne Feinstein, excuse me, and met Walter Cronkite, actually, of all people.
Wow.
And so, and then covered the Olympics at what they call the Agate Desk on the San Francisco Examiner. And, it goes back. And my mentor was a guy who taught the William Hearst kids how to be journalists and the like. And so then I got my mentor came and sat next to me at the desk of the San Francisco Examiner, and he says, "Hey, how would you like to go to Caracas?" And now I've always wanted to be a foreign correspondent. I love William Shire's Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to be, that'd be great. And I said to him, yes, I want to go. Where's Caracas? and so he said, well, it's in Venezuela. I said, okay, that sounds good to me. So I went there for 2 years, and Caracas was a wonderful place at that time. It's not so wonderful anymore, for political reasons and everything. But I toured around. I went to Cuba, and then I took a tour to Central America and the like. And then I came back to California. And in those days, I mean, you guys who are pretty young might not understand this, but in those days, you graduated from journalism school, and the theory was you go start work at a small newspaper somewhere, then you move up and up and up. So say you work in say like the Pasadena Star, then you move to the Riverside Enterprise Press, then you move to the Orange County Register, then you move to the Los Angeles Times, and then you move to the New York Times if you're lucky. And that was a stepping stone in the whole bit. And so I went to the Stockton Record. And I don't know how many of you have been to Stockton, but, for me, when I was 25, 26, it was fine. But frankly, I wasn't very good at the job. And I was a copy editor. And, I was like, being a copy editor I was like the guy who went out and got this. I was like a wide receiver on a football team who could catch the ball and run with it, but couldn't block, and so if you can't block, you're not a good wide receiver, right? So they let me go, and I thought, oh man, I really don't want to be in.
Wait, they let you go? You got fired?
Yeah, after 6 months.
Peter Brennan got fired.
You're not really a journalist until you've been fired or been on a publication and went bankrupt.
Oh.
I've done both. I've done both. And so, everybody has ups and downs, right? So when I was in Central America, I met the couple, or not the couple, this father and daughter who ran this little English language newspaper called the Tico Times. I thought, well, that'd be fun to work in Costa Rica, and so I went down to Costa Rica, was there for a couple of years. It was really exciting, covering the wars in Central America, Nicaragua, El Salvador, the old invasion of Panama. The old saying the editor said, keep your head down, is really true. You don't want to pop up at the wrong time. Because I do know journalists who have popped up their heads at the wrong time and got shot.
Oh, no.
Yeah. No. And so, it was, I remember flying back from the Panama border and on a small 8-seater plane, and the TV woman on the plane was terrified because we were flying in clouds for 15 minutes. And in Central America, you always hear about the plane crashes, and there are all these 2 or 3 paragraphs that buried into the middle of the story. So many people were killed, yada, yada, yada. And so, that was the kind of life it was. And so then something bad happened in 1990. I covered the Nicaraguan elections, the Sandinistas lost, and peace broke out.
Wow.
That was horrible for my business.
Well, get ready. I think we are going to rename a Gulf and take over a canal again. So you might have a job.
That's all very funny to me. So, good for business, But so I was working for the Washington Post at that time as a stringer, and New York Times and the whole bit, and I learned a lot about stringing and the like. And when I started out, I would write 5 stories for my Tico Times and try to freelance one time. Then I learned you write one story and try to freelance it in 5 different places in the world, and that's how you make more money and the like. And so that's what I was doing. And then so I was going. There's a whole bunch of journalists who follow wars. I don't know how many of you have seen Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, but there's that journalist group, and they all sort of know each other, And so I was going to go cover the next war in Peru, and Peru was really nasty, and they killed journalists, And I remember one freelance journalist from Miami was killed by the Shining Path because he had short hair, and they thought he was with the CIA. I mean, that's how crazy it is. And so I was on my way there, and then I met this Costa Rican woman, and I thought, well, she's far more interesting than the war in Peru. And so we married. We've been married 32 years now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And so I stayed in Costa Rica till 96, and I had a lot of fun. I was doing a lot of things. I was the editor of the Costa Rican American Chamber of Commerce magazine, Business Costa Rica, and then I had my own TV show and the like. I was doing that, and
Wow.
Then Kiplinger offered me a fellowship to get a master's in journalism. As I said, most journalists, by the time they're in their early 40s, get out of the profession. And so you get all this wisdom going out the door. And so I thought, okay, I got to prepare myself for my next stage in career. Maybe it's being a professor or a teacher or something. So they offered to pay me to get a master's in journalism, which I thought was very cool. So we went up to Ohio for a year, and my wife said to me after a year, "Get me the hell out of here."
It's Ohio.
Southern California looks a lot nicer. But go Buckeyes, man. You hear that? I'm cheering.
Ohio, I have some friends in Ohio. The Buckeyes are what keeps them there.
Yeah. Well, if you ever look at the weather map, there's always a haze over Ohio. It's just, there's like 80 days of sunshine there a year. And my wife from Costa Rica, she doesn't like this weather. So we came to Southern California, and Rick Reef, I don't know how many of you know Rick Reef. In those days, you always wanted to go work at the daily papers because that was the bomb, and that was the whole bit. And then I had the city editor of the daily paper, the Daily News in New York City, explain to me why my resume wasn't good enough. He said, people don't trust anybody who's been abroad. Editors don't trust foreign correspondents to come in and do the job. And Rick hired me. He took me to a bar, and we had a few drinks. He said, "You're hired." And I said later to him, "Why did you hire me?" He says, "Well, you worked for 40 different publications, freelance. It was obvious it wasn't one editor behind you. It was I myself who was doing it." So I worked there for 3 years, and then Bloomberg came calling. And, Bloomberg News is started by, this is another thing the media won't tell you. When Bloomberg started in the early 80s, he took financial information and he put it all computerized. And he was far ahead of Dow Jones and Reuters. And so he basically took their market share away. So I want to say the latest figures I saw was Bloomberg has 35 to 40% of the market for financial information. Reuters has 20 or 25, and Dow Jones has less than 5%. The Wall Street Journal will never tell you that. But they completely botched it in the 80s. And so Mike Bloomberg saw that he was going to be cut out by Dow Jones Newswire, so he started his own news service. And the guy who started is named Matt Winkler, and he hired every single one of us, the 3,000 of us, and interviewed us. And we were known for short, snappy bits, right to the point, 4 paragraphs, 5 paragraph stories. And in Washington, we got known as the McDonald's of news. It was an insult. So you didn't want to go work for the McDonald's of news, right? But what everybody else didn't know was Bloomberg paid about 25 to 50% higher than everybody else. So it attracted some of the world's best journalists. And when I was there, I saw stuff that was, wow, that's really fantastic. And I would, I covered tech, and I interviewed Steve Jobs and Carly Fiorina and Michael Dell and Ted Waite and all those people. And so we'll write stories on them. And then the rest of the journalism world doesn't understand this, but if you write stories that move the stocks of companies, our bonuses will go up.
Oh.
And some of the other journalists were like, "Oh my God, how can you do that?" They said, "Well, that's why the investors pay Bloomberg so much. I think each terminal costs an investor $2,500 a month. So they're paying $30,000 a year. And the reason is if you're first, if you know the news first and you're an investor, you have an advantage over those who don't." And so we prided ourselves on being first. We were first. We'd clock it. We was 75%, 80% of the time. We were beating Reuters and everybody else. And so it was a very dynamic, exciting area. It's also very alpha, very hard charging, and they party hard and they work hard. And so after 15 years I was there, and it was really fun. I would send headlines that would move the stocks of companies by hundreds of millions of dollars. And so you got to be right on that. I saw editors who sent the wrong headlines, and they were fired.
Wow.
It was that tense. So anyway.
I didn't realize it was 15 years you were there.
Yes, 15 years.
Living that New York, Manhattan life.
Well, I wasn't in New York, Manhattan. I was in the Beverly Hills office.
Oh, very different.
It's very different. And my wife, when I got the job, my wife says, "Well, you can move to Los Angeles. I'm not moving. I love Irvine." So I would commute for 15 years up to Beverly Hills.
From Irvine?
Yes, with all my friends on the 405. And like, that's how I viewed it. You would look at these people and they're all going somewhere. They're all driving to work or something like that. And I find if you get on the road by 5:30, it's a straight through shoot. And if you're every 15 minutes, you add another 20 minutes on, So anyway, those of you who know the commute,
I used to commute downtown LA from Costa Mesa.
Yeah. So you guys know that. So anyway.
Well, that was fascinating. Well, you mentioned something that kind of gives us a really great way to talk about a shift in your journalism. So you had to write really short, punchy, 4 to 5 paragraphs. But now you and I had a conversation about, hey, what are you going to do as editor-in-chief? Are you shifting anything? And you shared with me that you really want to bring in more Wall Street Journal style features where you put the corporate leader in the center with this very human experience in the midst of all of the corporate influences and pressures and situations that they're facing, where you really lean into that humanity part of how you're reporting on what's happening in the business. And you pointed out the Massimo series of articles you did, and it was really fascinating to read and to watch how you did that. Tell us more about what you are looking for in those types of stories and why you think your readers want to see more of that.
Let me go back a little bit. My father was a victim of a scamster, and he lost a lot of money there. And so when I started out in journalism, business journalism, I would report on a lot of scams. And after a while, it all became sort of routine. And people come in and they complain about this scam or that scam, and to my office in Costa Rica, and I say, well, why would you invest in that? Why would you do that? And it just became like, there are a dime a dozen on the scamster level. And so that's why here you have the FBI, the DOJ, the police department, the sheriff department, everybody's investigating crime. So having said that, I know what criminals look like. And I also know what successful people look like. And so I'm looking around at successful people and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I could not sell a pencil to you. I couldn't say, well, this is the world's greatest pencil, in the whole bit, and you should buy it. And people have these ideas in their head, and they think about it, and they actually come to fruition, and they actually are able to convince people to sell. And I always tell my reporters, what's the most important metric? Any of you know? Revenue. Because you're convincing somebody else to go in their wallet and buy something from you. And so these companies that we're covering, and here's a little tip for you. We like to cover companies that have more than $10 million in annual sales. If you have under $10 million in annual sales, we'll find a place for you in our innovation column or anything, but we're really looking for those that are bigger companies. And here in Orange County, there are, let me give you, a banker once told me this. In Portland area, there are 700 companies, mid-market companies with $5 million to $500 million in sales. In Seattle area, 2,000 companies, $5 million to $500 million in sales. In Orange County, 3,000 companies.
Wow.
3,000 companies from $5 million to $500 million. And so we are looking for those companies that, and if you say your sales are above 10 million, we'll pay attention. And we have ways to vet them. The guy who comes in and says he has 100 million in sales and he's working out of a WeWork's office, we know something's wrong there, so.
That's interesting. So you recently hired your replacement as an executive editor, the amazing Nancy Luna, who many of us who have been doing PR here in Orange County for a couple decades, we used to work with Nancy on the restaurant scene, and remember when she moved to National Trade News for restaurant business. It was wonderful to see that you put her as executive editor and we get to work with her again here. Tell us more about her role, kind of how you're shaping your newsroom under your new leadership, and anything we need to be in the know on.
Okay. So you guys know how our publication is, and on our homepage, you could always see the calendar of events. So we have about between 50 and 60 lists every year. And so she's in charge of overseeing the list. And you got to, if you represent a company and a company's not on the list, you got to get them on the list, because we'll pick 2 to 3 companies from those lists to profile them in that particular issue and saying they're numbered 11 on this week's list. They're growing revenue X amount and so on. And so she's in charge of that. She's in charge of the special reports. And she's in charge of the columnists and the columns that we write. So that gives you a sense of what she's taking first in. And then I edit the page 1 and page 3 stories. And we work together to decide what stories will appear where.
That's great. Tell us what you're interested in. You still continue to lean into commercial real estate. That's always going to be something.
It took me the longest time. I'm not the brightest guy on the planet, so it took me a long time to realize that real estate is really big. And if you look around here in Orange County, every single building is owned by somebody. They want to know what the price per square foot is, whether it's going up and down. And now, if you're in own offices, things are sucking wind right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, so you want to know who's doing what, where they're going. So real estate had long been the bailiwick for the Orange County Business Journal. That's long where we focus. And so having said that, real estate is important to us. I don't want to undermine it at all. The healthcare space, we had a couple of healthcare beat reporters, and they were okay. But my boss at the time, Mark, said, "Why don't you cover the healthcare beat?" And so I started covering it. And it's really fascinating. I mean, you have 3 hospitals being built here in Orange County. What was it? Okay, we got Hoag, renovating, spending $1.3 billion. They never get it straight. 1.3, 1.5. Who cares? UCI building $1.5 billion. Hope. I think they're all going for 1.
City of Hope.
City of Hope, $1.5 billion. I mean, this is in city of Irvine alone. That is just fascinating. And so why are they doing this? I mean, we all heard hospitals were going out of style and everybody's moving to ambulatory services and the like. And so that's a fascinating area. And then you have medical device companies like you have this guy named Raymond Cohen. 10 years ago, he had a successful exit from a company. He thought, well, I could build this product to treat incontinence. Everybody's affected by it over 55. And so he built the device, got it approved by the FDA. I think he's got up to $500 million in sales, and he sold his company for $3.7 billion.
Yeah, he was featured in your Innovator.
That's right, yeah.
He was fascinating.
He's fascinating, and you've got a lot of people like that running around here. If you could just hold this for me, I just want to show this. How many of you read this week's issue?
Oh, go Ellen. Front row seat, hand up right away.
Okay. How many of you know who Gavin Herbert is? Okay. So Gavin Herbert is basically the founder of Allergan. Everybody know what Allergan's famous for?
Botox.
Botox. Okay,
I know
right.
that.
So that's our lead story. And Gavin Herbert, he's 93. He doesn't do many interviews. He sat with me over at the farmhouse. How many know Gavin Herbert was fascinated by gardening? He loves gardening. And he went over to this place and gardening center in Costa Mesa. He was the biggest customer there, so he ended up buying the place. And he moved it to Newport Beach. It's called Rogers Garden. And so he owns that. If you like Rogers Garden, this is the guy who owns it, okay? So, and look at this. And normally we honor 4 to 6 people a year for business persons of the year. And this year we honored 8. And they all have really great stories behind them. And one of the keys for all of you here is that we've reported on them earlier this year or earlier last year or over the years. And so we're not going to name somebody who we haven't reported on, as a business person of the year. So if you look at these, and I hope you all read these, and then also Gavin, we do what we call the leaderboard, and it's a little secret. I ghostwrite a lot of them. They tell me their stories and they approve it, yay or nay, and Gavin's story is a very interesting story. I hope you guys have a chance to read it.
He's a gentleman you said is
93 years old, right? And he's telling me, he's still active, and he was active there. So
that's great. So innovation is key. Companies over 10 million get your attention, but I also have to say, I've noticed a shift. You're doing more nonprofit. Tell me about that.
Well, 25 years ago when I was at the Business Journal the first time, I didn't really pay much attention to nonprofits. But since then, the paper has shifted over there. We have 4 special issues a year on nonprofits, the biggest donors, the biggest nonprofits, and so on. And I think what's really important is business leaders want to be involved in the community. particularly when you get older. Like, I like to volunteer. I like to donate my time to various causes and the like. And so you get involved in these nonprofits, and you see a need in the community, and you try to help people in need. And I see a lot of executives out there who do it. And so our readers want to know, what are executives doing? As you probably know, we have a philanthropy columnist, Kim, and I can't tell you how many executives tell me that's one of the first things they read is, who's doing what, so.
Well, also, Claudia Keller, she's the CEO of Second Harvest Food Bank. She was named one of the Business Women of the Year. And I've noticed the last several years, you've selected nonprofit leaders. And she got up in front of, the 600 women that were in that room and thanked you for recognizing nonprofit CEOs as business leaders. What did you think of her speech?
Well, she was great. I think I interviewed somebody, and I forget who it was. They're treating cancer in children, and what can you say?
Yeah, they have to run like a business.
Yeah, they have to run it like a business. I told them you're doing God's work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you also shifted, and I'm going to keep on a little bit of an emotional topic, Peter. Sorry, I'll give you a chance to catch your breath. But we were working on a leaderboard together, and you had called me and said, "Hey, I'm going to have to push it." And you told me this story. One is that you had moved the 50 most influential people in Orange County. It typically had been filled with a variety of different people. And you said, hey, look, we shifted. We're actually going to feature 50 of the most influential people who give into the community and invest in the community. And you told me a story about your meeting with Dick Pickup. And that was the reason why the article we were working on was going to get pushed. Mm-hmm. Can you share what happened in that moment?
Dick Pickup is one of these guys who followed the Warren Buffett School of Investment, and he did very, very well. And his family, I'm sure all of you know the Balboa Bay Club. His family bought the Balboa Bay Club. Mm-hmm. They bought the Newport Beach Country Club and the whole bit. And so they've done very well. And he's donated $65 to $80 million to Hogue. So we have every year we do the 50 most influential, and last year we focused on the 50 most influential business people in the nonprofit world. And so we decided to highlight him, and we named him. And so I went off to interview him, ghostwrite the article, and at his Newport Beach Country Club, and he came over I met him there. He was standing up and came over and said hello, and we sat down. He said, I have to view the TV show, the TV business news show, because everybody knows you cover stocks. It closes at 1 o'clock. The market closes. So you would like to see a lot of news comes out after 1 o'clock. And so we're talking, and I interviewed him. I had a tape rolling.
Yeah, you had a recorder, right?
Yeah, I had the recorder, and after 25 minutes, all of a sudden he just stopped moving, and sort of started leaning toward the side, and I said, Dick, are you okay? And so I called the waiter over. We brought some orange juice for him, and the whole bit. And the waiter was saying, "Well, do you think we should call the ambulance?" And I said, "Yes." And so we called the ambulance, and he died that night.
So you had his last words.
Yeah, I did.
And you were with him.
Yeah.
And you held his hand, and you were there until he was safely with his family.
Yeah.
That was a really hard moment for you. But then they asked you to do something really special.
Oh, yeah. Well, I had interviewed him for 20 to 25 minutes, so I got a lot of the leaderboard. And so, I decided, it's going to be his last leaderboard, and he didn't get final approval to it, but his family did. And so we ran it, in that issue, May 27th issue or something like that. And I also gave the recording to his family.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what that was like for you. And I read your column. You wrote a column explaining your experience. You also wrote his obituary, mm-hmm. and you got to write his final words.
Yeah.
And so I just think that was a really meaningful probably moment in your career. And I appreciate you calling me and sharing it with me. But I think so many times we approach journalists and we forget sometimes the humanity that is behind the work. And to be part of that moment in time and how you handled that was such a gift to his family. Yeah. And to all of us in Orange County. Dick was an incredible philanthropist. He'd given $100 million in healthcare grants. And it was really great to read the story of a man who changed so much for so many. So thank you for that contribution.
My pleasure. Yeah.
So kind of shifting gears a little bit. So we know you're focusing a lot on nonprofits, which is great. There's a lot of awesome nonprofit leaders in this room. But what are some of the things that really have your interest on the horizon as we look at the broader Orange County business landscape?
I love space. I love tech. And we've written some stories about this crazy company out of Seal Beach that's building satellites to send to asteroids to mine them and bring them back. Isn't that fascinating? That's just the wildest stuff. And one of the things I use to vet stories is how much they have raised. It's one thing if you raise $50,000, but if you raise $50 million, people believe in you. And they're putting $50 million down. So that's that company. You look at Andrew out of Costa Mesa with Palmer Luckey. What he's done is really incredible. I want to say they're on an annual run rate of $500 million now from an idea in his head 8 years ago. So Andrew, and like I said, MedTech is very good. One of our winners is this guy, Tom Burns of Glaukos. Glaukos has invented the world's smallest medical device. Something you put in your eye. Can you imagine that? It's put in your eye. It's just like...
It's all happening here.
It's all happening here. The guy invented it down there in San Clemente. He and his team of engineers and scientists. And so it's really fascinating. You look at another winner of ours was RxSight. And what they did, I don't know how many of you had cataract surgery. I had it earlier this year. It was wonderful. It was much better than I ever thought it would be. But with cataract surgery, what happens is they examine your eyes and they build the lens before it's implanted. And with RxSight, they can put the lens in there and adjust it after it's implanted, which is really fascinating. And they use ultralights and stuff like that. And so they're out there. And so there's just a lot of, the world's an oyster for us. And also another industry that I never really paid much attention to are restaurant chains.
Yeah.
We have
a lot actually in Orange County, headquartered here.
What was fascinating was Brian Nichol took over Chipotle, and actually Chipotle the founder got the idea from San Francisco burrito stores there in my neighborhood. I actually ate those burritos. I was a poor student. I would eat one burrito a day. It would feed me, right? And the guy who founded Chipotle was in the same neighborhood. So he copied that idea. They made Chipotle really famous. And then Brian Nichol took over in 2018. It was based in Denver. And he moved the company's headquarters to Orange County. I thought, okay, whatever. I'll probably look for some cheap places up in Anaheim or something. He went to Newport Center. And those of you who know, Newport Center has costs the same per square foot as Midtown Manhattan. It's super expensive. So why would a restaurant chain go there? And if any of you have ever been to the buildings there, I was at PIMCO on a 6-month contract. And you ever go to the buildings there, it's just drop dead gorgeous view. And look at that. And I'm thinking to myself, well, Brian Nichol wants to hire the best people possible. And here in Orange County, you have some great people. And my friend went and worked for him, in the tech area, software area. And so here in Orange County, if you can make it here in Orange County, my feeling is you can make it anywhere. You got Taco Bell, In-N-Out, Chipotle, Pickup Sticks. You got a whole bunch of Habit and the whole bit. And so that's a really fascinating industry that we're following. So.
That's great. Very cool. Okay, so we've talked about all of these different industries, but I want to know, how do you see Orange County ranking up against our big brother in LA?
Well, you always walk a fine line between, being boosterism or being too negative. Pollyannish, being too negative, and most journalists are lean towards the too negative side. And so when I look at LA, I see it as it's a pretty dynamic economy, despite all, you guys all know the headaches and government regulations and that sort of thing and the wildfires there. But it's still pretty dynamic, and it's, Orange County will never be the same size as LA.
Thank God.
Yeah. And I think of it as LA has its problems, and I know a lot of executives. Sometimes they like being there, sometimes they don't. And you can see the major headquarters have left, basically, particularly the banks. And a lot of companies are headquarters here because Orange County is a very nice place to live. I grew up in Hawaii, so I know really gorgeous places. My mother was a tour guide, so I went all around there. I lived in Latin America, I lived in Costa Rica, Venezuela, traveled all over Europe, skied in Europe. And I got to say, I was once interviewing the head of a tour agency that had 130 employees, and he's been all around the world. He says, Orange County is the best place in the world.
There is no place like home. I feel the same way.
Yeah.
So great.
The weather is perfect.
Perfect.
So my sister, I was talking to my sister in Minnesota yesterday. She said it's 6 degrees. It's going to warm up to 25 tomorrow. We're all happy. And so I don't want to be too much of a boosterism, but I don't want to be too much of a nattery nagob of negativity. I think that's what Piero Agnew once called the media. And so if you read our publication, one thing we do is we take out the smarminess. None of our reporters are going to have a smarmy comment, and they're pretending that they know more than the business executives. And so I insist on it, and so we don't have it in there. But at the same time, this issue particularly promotes the biggest or the best in Orange County last year. The previous issue, I interviewed the CEO of Loan Depot, and he told me how he had to lay off 7,500 people. That's a tough
really tough
business.
Yeah.
And so he called me up, or he sent me an email afterwards saying he really liked the article. Because it was straight down, it told, the conflict he has. And you asked me how I look at stories, okay? And I tell our reporters this. Think of it as a movie, like Star Wars. In Star Wars, you need the hero, Han Solo, but you also need the villain, Darth Vader. A movie without Darth Vader is like a documentary, a boring documentary. So in typical media, they will have a protagonist and antagonist. The protagonist is usually, particularly business coverage, the lowly consumer who's being beat up by the big bad corporation insurance company. Basically they denied something or something. So you see it all the time. In our publication, you can see the hero, the protagonist, is the fellow who has a problem, and the antagonist is the problem. How does he go around solving that problem? How does he figure out what to do? And that's the story I always want to tell.
I love that. Well, you're doing something right, because Richard Reisman at a recent event talked about the fact that you guys are doubling down on print. You've invested more in the quality of your end product with your printing techniques. Your subscribers are incredibly robust. But you also are trying to make some headway in the digital space. I personally have seen you on LinkedIn more. If you don't follow Peter, follow him.
Please all follow me.
Follow him on LinkedIn. Put some more pressure on him. I know how hard it is to get around to posting. And every time you post, I look and read what you have to say, especially if you're posting articles that you care about. I know that there's something in there that has caught your interest. But also the Orange County Business Journal and your social platforms are more active. So tell us, what are you guys doing as you look through the changing media landscape? Washington Post just announced that they did a bunch of cuts. They're leaning more toward personality, talent-driven content creators. They got rid of some very seasoned journalists, which was really shocking. You're seeing Forbes and Inc. and Wall Street Journal investing in these digital platforms and storytelling. When you're hiring, are you looking at that skill set?
Oh, yeah. Anybody who when you hire somebody nowadays and they're in their 20s, they know it all. They know it far more than you do. I do, anyway. So if I may do a little brief history on what happened in the media. Okay, so in the 1990s, the internet came along, and we in the media were told, well, you have to put your stories online for free, and then you'll get clicks on it, and then you'll get revenue from that. And so we in the media go, okay, that makes sense to us. So everybody got used to giving it away for free, and everybody got used to reading things for free. And so then Google and Twitter and Facebook came along, and if you look at the chart, their revenue started going up, and the print media, or the regular media revenue started going down. And I remember I actually interviewed Melissa Myers when she was head of research at Google, and she was telling me, we were sitting out there in Irvine at the coffee shop, she was telling me how they're making advertisements pop up to where your phone was, where you were actually sitting. This was in the mid-2000s, you can imagine. And that's actually what happened. I mean, if you guys have these advertisements following you around, it's just the weirdest thing around, but so the media started imploding, and the next thing we know, well, the media, everybody wants to read stories, but if your advertising revenue is coming down, what happened in the daily paper, particularly the daily paper, they would go through rounds of layoffs, as you just mentioned, and they're always firing the most highly paid people. Mm-hmm. The most highly paid people are usually the most seasoned people.
The best.
With the most experience. And so you have a lot of the governors, I like to call ourselves the older ones, the governors, to tell the younger ones how to do it, are gone and And so if you ever look at the LA Times or Orange County Register and say, I think that was a better paper 20 or 30 years ago. It was. It's true. And And so everybody's gone online, and they're now trying to develop the subscription model. And what happens in the subscription model is the Wall Street Journal, New York Times are leading the way. In the previous model, the advertising paid for about 60% of revenue, and the subscription paid 40%. So if you go to a subscription model, it pays almost 100% of it. And what everybody's doing is going for the clicks, because the more clicks you get, supposedly the more revenue you get. And so at Bloomberg, you could see this. We track this pretty well. And if you had certain words in the headline, you get a lot more clicks. Like you have Warren Buffett in the headline, you get a lot more clicks. And I remember reading stories where Warren Buffett wasn't mentioned until the middle of the story. It wasn't about him, but he was in the headline. You have headlines on bonuses. Wall Street was always intrigued by that. Sex always sold. And
always does, right?
And then kindergartens in Manhattan always got a lot of clicks, believe it or not.
Kindergarten is in Manhattan?
Yeah, Wall Street. I mean, you talk about alphas, they're like, my kids got to go to the best kindergarten around, and the whole bit. So, so what happens now is you're gearing the clicks to what your audience wants. And so instead of trying to tell, being fair and neutral, you sort of gear it toward what they'll click on, what they believe. And as a result, you'll get more clicks, but then you'll get a more bias and more, it's not as fair as before. And the Washington Post, I don't know exactly what's going on there, but I can tell you when I was at Bloomberg, we never paid attention to their business coverage.
Yeah.
Never. They never broke any business news. And so it was also political. And so they're, that's their town. That's what
I was
they
going to
cover.
say, DC. That makes sense.
And so their subscription, I saw this today, their subscription's gone from 20 million down to 3 million. And so that's a big hit. Yeah. And so you look at this and you think to yourself, okay, how do we navigate this? And our publisher, he's been around for 35 years, and bless his soul, his motto is, we ain't giving our shit away for free. And so, you got to pay for it if you want to get it, and it's $58 a year. It's $1 an issue, plus you get the book a list, you get the 500, OC 500. And so we're slowly going over to, my vision is, okay, podcasts are very big, video casts are very big. We might do a few of those, and it sounds strange to say this on a video show, but when I'm interviewing people and I do an interview for a half hour, 45 minutes, they know it's for a print story. Mm-hmm. People change when they know it's for a podcast or for a video or TV, and so the whole ambiance changes. So we got to watch that. We got to make sure that doesn't get it. So it's a brave new world out there. Our advertisers like us, and when I was at the Business Journal 25 years ago, I thought we'd be around forever. frankly, and I would compete against the Orange County Register and the LA Times and the whole bit. And now I really appreciate the paper and what it's done. Our advertising people are top notch. And I think our advertisers recognize that.
Yeah, we do.
And they know that if we go under, there's no one else to tell your story.
Yep.
The business and I don't know about nonprofit, but certainly business and like that.
Yeah.
So they want to keep us around.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always make a call for subscribe to our local papers. We need the Register for our overall news in the county, and we need our Business Journal telling the important news of this vibrant economy in this vibrant county. So we are coming up on time, but I know that there's probably questions in the audience. We have a microphone. If you could just say your name and who you represent. Love to open up the questions for Peter.
Well, first and foremost, thank you. It was fascinating. Charlotte Beatty with Cox Business and Cox Communications. You mentioned that a lot of journalists leave the career by 40. I left by 25. How do you think the Business Journal and all of your peers are going to create a new pipeline of journalists in this next generation? Because we have a lot of great journalism schools in California and in the country. So what is the Business Journal kind of doing to lure in new reporters?
It's really tough out there. It's when I was starting out in the 80s, it was tough then, but there were a lot of journalists to choose from. And now I'm in the hiring mode. And when I hire people, there are certain positions that have a lot of applicants, and others that don't. We tried to find an editor-in-chief to replace Mark, and there was nobody out there. Just nobody. And so that's why I stepped into the role. We're hiring people from UCI, and we've been pretty good. And their literary journalism program has been very good. But frankly, Chapman and Fullerton, they're sort of like out there. They don't even know we're around. And they're training their reporters to be multimedia, and which is fine. I appreciate that. So the younger reporters are looking to become more multimedia, and that's what, and so we're hiring them, and hopefully we'll give them a chance and we can do some things. We're fooling around with it right now. So I do think there's a lack of talent out there right now, and it's actually an evolution that every one of you want accurate news, right?
Yep.
You want to go to a place and you want to say, this is accurate. I remember in 2007, I was reading the Wall Street Journal, and the op-ed editors were saying, oh, well, the interest rate will go up. And so I thought I had to lock in a new mortgage rate. So I paid $20,000 to get the mortgage rate, and the interest rates went down. And I was really ticked off. Oh. And so you want accurate information, and there are certain websites out there that are providing it. I don't know how many of you heard of Deadline Hollywood or not, but that was started by a reporter from the LA Times who was, I don't know, she laid off or whatever. She started her own website. She was a bird dog. And so she got she built it up so well that she sold it for $14 million. Mm-hmm. So, she was so accurate. And so we're all looking around for accurate information. And that's what we at the Business Journal want to provide you, with accuracy. You're not going to turn around and say, oh, well, that story was completely wrong.
So talent is key.
Well, talent is key, and it's harder to find it than it was 30 or 40 years ago. Most journalists, we do these leaderboards, and I had the former president of IBC saying, you have these, when you go to college, you have these salary calculators. How much does this degree cost? How much does that degree cost? There's a big fight in academia to prevent that from happening, because the humanities doesn't pay as much as science does, and so it's a huge argument going on. And you look at journalists. Journalists are among the lowest paid.
Yep.
And so it's tough. if you're a parent, do you want your kids to be journalists? My daughter's not going to be one.
Right. I actually was thinking about that last night. I wondered if someone was going to ask that question. I don't think it's an easy time to be in journalism school.
It's not. And, these. One of the things about academia is that, science, the STEMs majors, they can point to the calculators and say, yeah, these are great for us. And if you're in humanities, you say, make a difference. And that's the big selling point, And so if you're looking at your life and saying, do I want to make money or make a difference,
Yeah.
So.
Other questions? We We have time for one more. All right. Well, Peter, I always like to end our interviews on just kind of our guests' hope for the future. And so as you look at 2025, you look at the Orange County business community, and you look at your new team, and some have been with you for years and some are new. What's your hope for 2025? What are you looking forward to?
I always love great stories. I love that. That's just who I am. You find me a great story, and I'm just ecstatic. Gavin Herbert was really great. I hope you guys read his story. And so if you have any great stories, I'm always looking for it. I'm looking for an executive, an entrepreneur who saw a problem and decided to go and solve it, and is starting to generate revenue or solve the issue. That's what I look for.
Well, I look for Peter saying to me, "Oh, that's a good story." That's what I look for. So, hey, thank you so much, Peter, for coming on. You're awesome. Love working with you. Thank you so much. And he'll be hanging out if you want to talk to him a little bit more. Thank you, everyone.